I want us to talk a little bit about building brand for your business.
Okay.
How important is building a personal brand, whatever it is you want to do? How important has it been for your success?
There's a number of factors on this one. So building a brand for the first.
Meet Fraser Merifield, a digital recruiter, tech enthusiast, and a builder of extraordinary teams. His journey bridges technology and talent, helping startups and scale-ups turn big ideas into reality. From health tech to gaming, fintech to space exploration, Fraser has worked with innovators across industries.
What are the things I should look for in a co-founder?
The opposite of what you have.
Okay.
If you're going to put two people into a business,
How did we get here?
risk was always the factor, and it was always this massive thing to me. And it was like, so yeah, no, I don't like risk. It's also the way. It's also part of the way I run the business. I did start off. I've only changed careers like 3 or 4 times in my life.
For those who do not know you, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Fraser Merrifield. I run a business called Form Careers. I started that up just during the lockdown. I started up the business and basically specialize in tech recruiting. So in the software engineering and kind of design testing, these kind of things.
Awesome. So the way you sort of run fun careers seem to be it seems from my perspective, it seems you are very, very focused. I'm looking for the word for it. You are particular about the way you run it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to you are not looking at getting it to be the biggest, seems to me, seems you are curating. He said the craft beer of recruitment.
The craft brew of recruitment.
The craft brew of recruitment. Can you walk with
That started as a joke. Someone asked me to describe what makes what I do different from every other recruiter out there. And there's this thing in the industry that you ask any recruiter what they do differently, they'll tell you that it's all about people, it's all about the passion for helping people and all these kind of things. And that's great and everything, but everyone will give you that answer. Networks in recruitment will tell you that they do it for the love of the job and it's nothing to do with the money and this kind of thing. And the only way I could describe the way I ran the business any different from that was beer's beer, right? So you buy a Bud, you buy a Beck's, you buy a Brewdog, you buy any sort of beer, beer's beer, okay? But then you have the craft beer, which tends to be smaller companies, smaller batches, there's more time and effort put into the ingredients, and they tend to be more unique. And they're not for everyone. I mean, that's a big factor of it. They're not trying to please everyone. They're not trying to be everyone's number one go-to. They're small, they're specialist, and they like it that way. And that's kind of what I'm going to do with the business. The real focus is on doing it the way I think it should be done. And if you like that, great. If you don't, brilliant. There's 100 other agencies that you can go and work with that'll do very much what I do, but do it in a different side. So really, it's just the way I approach this is slightly different from us. So, and it kind of stuck, and people seem to like it now. Although I do get people asking if I craft beer, and I'm like, no, I don't. So I should probably take that up. It's up on it.
So I usually like to go to Zero when I want to talk to Fraser, maybe Fraser when Fraser was growing up.
Yep.
I was in Reno, like.
It was good. Very regular. Oh God, very regular.
What do you call it over there?
Regular. I grew up in this little street, Paisley, and every kid in the street was pals, all age groups, everyone was friends, playing consoles, playing football, playing with woods behind the house, so it was just out on bikes. It was very much go out and playing when the lights come on your home, and yeah, it was good. So good family, a close-knit family, yeah.
So I love the fact that you said you started from Paisley.
Yep.
The last person, which was Nick too, is from Paisley.
Yep.
He started. Do you know
Which Nick?
Nick, the person I walked out just now?
Oh no, I don't.
He's also from Paisley. It's only today's Paisley Day. I also live in Paisley. Oh, do you? Yes. Whereabouts? I used to live in Wells Street.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think we should walk out about us. I don't know if it was active brand for me. So was there anything, because I know Paisley, okay, was there anything in your childhood that prepared you for how you are approaching, how you're building firm careers?
Yeah.
Let's just say
Yes. Firstly, my dad worked from home for like my entire life. My dad worked from home. So he had,
I thought work from home was invented during COVID.
nope, my dad did it for like 4 years. He worked for Air France, and he worked in their sales. He was like sales director in the end, and he worked he had an extension built on the back of the house, and that was his office. And he worked from there for my whole life. So I spent summer holidays, and I spent when I came home from school. My dad was there. He would drop me at school. He was the one that picked me up, and he was working when I was there in the summer, and he was always working on sales. So a lot of the time, I remember when I was growing up, I would be sneaking past his desk while he was on sales calls, and it was up, do not speak, and it was very strict. When he's working, don't disturb him. And but he would always share knowledge and experience, and I would always hear him on the phone. And back in those days, he had two numbers, two house phones. But quite often, you would pick up a phone, and it would be someone from his work, and I'd be handing over the phone. So from single digits, I had experience of dealing with my dad's clients and customers and colleagues, and speaking to these people, and learning from him. So he's a people person, and he taught me a lot of stuff that I still hold with me today. A lot of lessons he still does. So yeah, so I learned the whole homeworking thing, the discipline that's associated with that, and the concept of how to work people. Honesty was a huge thing, Colin. Always be honest, own your mistakes. So yeah, no, I learned a lot from operating in terms of how I approach my business and how I approach a lot of this.
Impressive. I'm loving the way this is going. Tell me one thing. Give me a masterclass in sales.
Masterclass in sales. God, I'm the least salesy person in the I don't sell. It's a blessing and a curse, but I'm much more interested in building relationships with people over time. Getting to know people, making myself visible, and I don't sell anymore. I mean, I can sell. In a traditional, get someone on the phone, get them interested in your product, get a meeting booked with them. I can do that. A form of sales. I've worked 20 years in recruitment. It's how I was trained in hard sales. But the way I run the business now is not about that. It's about understanding people. And my concept is that it's a hell of a lot easier to sell if you understand people and you're not trying to push them into your solution.
Right.
But when they need something, they know where you are, they know what you do, they know your way of working, so they pick up the phone. So 90% of the business that I get comes to me now, rather than me going out chasing it.
Of course, you are very, very active on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I want you to talk to me a little bit about this podcast is for people who are trying to start business or are in business to take them from 0 to 1, and those who are in 1 from 1 to 100.
Yep.
So how do you approach marketing for phone carriers? I see, because let me give you a little bit of context. You are one of the people in this environment, in this community, that has a very, very strong personal brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, you share your stories, what you are feeling, what you are thinking, and it's sort of magnetized people towards you. And I'm sure that's where 90% of all of your businesses will come from. And I think that's one of the ways in my mind, for you as a brand, in my mind, that's how I see you as, like the brew, and like the crafts, the craft brewer, crafts brew. You are different. You rarely talk about what it is you do.
Yep.
Or people begin to fall in love with you as a person.
Yeah.
Then they go look at what does it do. Then, of course, whenever they have business, because you built the know, like, and trust factor. How can a founder do that?
That's a really hard question. I think from the very start of building my business, I did it in a way that suits my personality. And I built the business it was actually a last approach to recruitment. I was almost done with recruitment. I was about to leave the industry. Right before COVID hit and lockdown hit, I had my resignation letter written, and I was going to leave the industry because I was done with it. I was bored of it. I was burned out. And then when that all happened, I decided to do it the way I wanted to do it. So everything about my business is a reflection on my personality. I think that suits the way I do my business works for me because it's me. And I think what you've got to do is if you want to start a business, you've got to look at your position of strength. You've got to look at what you're good at. You've got to look at how you want to do it and what use the word passionate. Everyone uses the word passionate, and a lot of people don't like the word because it's overused. But I think you've got to find a way of approaching business that you genuinely enjoy. And you're not going to love every part of your job, but if you find these little moments that you know, I really like working that way, then do more of it. And use your personality, use your characteristics, use your strengths, and take all these things into your business. And then look at the things that you're not so good at and find ways to compensate for that. I'm terrible at admin, so the most expensive part of my business is my accountant, because my accountant does everything for me. It's automated. They're on top of me. When a button gets pushed, they contact me and tell me to push that button, so I can just forget about it and end up late on everything. So that's the biggest expense for me, because I know I'm terrible at administration. So I counter that so that I can focus on the stuff that I'm good at. So delegation's a big factor. And anything that you can delegate that you're not interested in, find a way of doing that. Now, a lot of people start out think tight, and you can't go hiring lots of people to do all these bits for you. But there's ways to increase efficiency. There's ways to optimize the stuff that you don't like, get things ticked off. If there's a task you don't like, but you've got to do it every week, tick it off fast so you can then focus on the stuff that you're good at. But I don't know. I just think that you have to go into business in a way that you actually enjoy working. If that answers your question,
That deeply does answers my question, because you build a business around, you are saying it's an overused word now. You've noticed a need, and you've noticed how you as a person will want recruitment to be.
Yep.
And something not so big, something small, something specific, something that does, like you mentioned, that is not for everyone.
Yep.
Or is for a specific set of people. Do you have, okay, let's talk about how did you started this business?
right. Okay.
You found that story.
Do you want the catalyst? I've written about this a couple of times, and people seem to relate to it. Pre-COVID, I had 2 kids, both at nursery. So I think my eldest was maybe 4 at the time, 4 and 2 years old. And every morning, my wife's in the police, so she's got very little flexibility around her working hours. She works for the courts, so she gets up and she's out in the morning before the kids are ready to be dropped off. So I was dealing with 2 kids at nursery age. Now, the nursery opens every morning at 8 in the morning. Recruitment, anyone that works in the game knows recruitment tends to be minimum hours 8 till 6. That's the standard recruitment hours. And obviously, I've been in the game for a long time, so start work at 9, fair enough. But I used to have to get up in the morning and get 2 kids ready and take them to nursery and drop them off at different doors at opposite sides of the nursery. And the only train that got me into town on time was at 8:30, and it was a mile drive down the road. You had to park at the overflow car park, run up the hill, and get on the train. And this got to the point that more often than not, when the train came in, the driver was holding the train and waving me on. I'd see when a train driver is not sticking the finger up and laughing as they pull out the station as you try and make the doors, then you kind of know something's out of whack, when they're starting to feel sorry for you because they see you every day sprinting up the hill to get to a train. And so by the time I was getting to work in the morning, I was beat. I felt like I brought a marathon already. Dealing with 2 kids at the best times isn't easy, but when you know that you've got that time to deal with, and being a working father, it's even less of a thing to ask for flexible hours and things. As a dad, it tends to be traditionally, it would always be the mum that does the school pickups and the drop-offs and these kind of things. So being in a very old school traditional industry that's based on hard sales and targets and being at your desk for long hours, and then all of a sudden having to balance family life into that was just it was flattening me. And the company I was working with at the time had changed quite a lot. It moved to quite a sales-focused, KPI-focused environment, which didn't really vibe with the way I worked. So I was done. I had my resignation written. It was in my jacket pocket that I wore to work every day, and I was waiting for the spark to hand it in, and just as I was reaching that point, COVID hit. Everyone got sent home from work, and we were told to work from home. And literally the first day of COVID, I came home and I said, I'm never doing that. That's it. I said, if redundancy comes up, I'll grab it with two hands. If it doesn't, I'll work out what I'm doing and I'll find a new avenue. But I was never going to go back to what I was doing and try to run that. So COVID hit and that happened. My wife was pregnant with my third kid at the time. So the second that the offices set back, she was putting fuel in. So the two of us are sitting in the house. And at that point, I'd never even considered starting the business because it just felt this massive risk. Got a mortgage, I've 2 kids, I've got a wife to look at. It's like, there's no way I can start a business at this stage. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and everything was a risk. I mean, everything was a risk. No one knew what was going to happen. I never knew if I was going to be able to get another job off this. It was like the world was going to collapse as far as half people were concerned. Yet things kept ticking along. So all of a sudden I decided, you know what? I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do this the way that I think it can be done. I want to do it a way that suits me. And so that day I went on to the HMRC and spent £14 and registered my business, and I kicked things off from there, which is also how I managed to, that's where the LinkedIn thing came from as well, because I had furlough and voluntary redundancy came up, which I took. So I had about a year where I couldn't be working and I couldn't be active in the market, but somehow I had to stay relevant and stay in people's minds or I would be starting from nothing. So I started writing about surviving homeschooling with kids. My eldest at that point, he started primary 1. And then all of a sudden we were homeschooling them because the schools were all closed. And it's like, all of a sudden I'm sitting in lockdown, homeschooling a primary 1. And it's like, so I started writing about stuff like that. And I just started writing. And the first time I wrote, I was like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm an absolute idiot. But everything I wrote felt embarrassing. I was sitting high in the head, but oh God, I can't believe people I knew are going to be reading this nonsense. And then once I got over that, I was like, who cares? The people that I actually will engage with that will like it, and the people that think I'm an idiot for posting this nonsense, who gives a shit? So I started writing, and then I'm comfortable with it. And it just became a thing, and that was how the business started. And that was how the first year or two of the business started. I mean, I wrote about everything. I wrote about starting a business. I wrote about running a business while homeschooling. I wrote about surviving COVID at lockdown and these kind of things. I wrote about recruitment, shared recruitment advice and people that had been affected by redundancies. I just shared any knowledge I had, anything I thought could be useful. But at the same time, I used it as almost like an emotional support. It was like it was like an outlet for me to talk to people when I was sitting in the house. So it just grew and it grew, and then LinkedIn became a thing, and that was the foundations of the business as it ended up being.
Oh,
That was it. It's the whole business came about because everything that was a risk all of a sudden became marginal.
wow. That's impressive, man. The reason why I said it's impressive is because many people get to that crossroad.
Yeah.
And some people take a nosedive. Things get worse. They are unable to come out of it again.
Yeah.
And you use that as an opportunity for you to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what advice do you have for somebody who is going through that kind of situation right now?
The biggest thing I've learned from it, part of me wishes I'd done it a lot sooner. I'm really risk averse. I've been running the inform meetings, which has now moved on to a founder series itself. And everyone that I speak to that are founders, the majority of people don't feel that risk. They're not risk averse. They're like run into the fire and I'd go and it's try shit. If it fails, it fails. Or you try something else. That's not me. I get anxious. The thought that makes me sweat. It's like I'm very risk averse. But I think the one thing I wish I'd done is understand the risk a lot sooner. Now, I worked in a recruitment business where to keep my job, I had to bring the company in 4 or 5 times what they paid me to earn my desk. It's a sales job at the end of the day. If I didn't bring that money in, I wouldn't have a job past 6 months. All of a sudden, COVID's hit and I was on furlough pay and my mortgage was still paid. I was like, there really is no risk because if I'm not billing that for another company, I want the job. All I have to do is bill enough money to keep my mortgage paid and it's a success. So I reframed the whole concept of risk. The actual risk of setting up the business was less than it was doing it for someone else. And all of a sudden I realized, what's the worst that can happen? And the worst thing that could have happened with me with starting out the business was I wasted 14 quid registering a company name. And I lost a little bit of time and maybe learning something along the way. And what would I do if it all went tits up? I'd go and get another job or so. I'd go back and I'd get another job or I'd try something new. Exactly the same thing that if going to start with a new employer didn't work out, you'd go and get another job, you'd start something else. So the risk of starting a business is a lot smaller than people give it. And I reckon in a lot of cases, it's a lot smaller than people think. So if you want to try something, calculate the risk, analyze the risk, have a look at what the genuine risk actually is and whether or not you want to take that leap. But I reckon for the majority of people, the risk's a lot less than they think it is.
Perfect. You know, talking about risk, most entrepreneurs are, like you said, they are people who run into risk.
Yep.
Then find out how the thing will actually work. I read something sometimes ago, I think last week, that says that entrepreneurs, some who jumps off the cliff and then find out if they are a parachute or not. That's just an extreme test. So how, and I also appreciate the fact that you have a family that you are responsible to, because of the family, they're not responsible. So let's say, you are the family, you are responsible to this family, and you have mortgage to pay, there are bills to pay.
Yep.
And for somebody who is not in that position of being made redundant, there is no COVID now.
Yep.
What will you tell them to get them to take the risk?
Well, I mean, if you've got, obviously the less overhead you've got on it, the less risk there is. But you can also buffer whatever risk there is by factoring it into the business. When I set up the business, the biggest risk was probably stress was a major factor. If I was sitting with a couple of months worth of money left on the table and I've got bills to pay and kids to feed, then the stress of that would change the way I work. And I work better when I'm chilled. It suits my style. So the first thing I did when I started the business was I rolled in a 6-month buffer. So my number one priority was to put 6 months worth of mortgage away into the business so that I didn't have to make decisions based on financials. So you can mitigate risk. You can take these things out of the equation. So firstly, you've got to understand what the risk is and what the biggest stressful factor of it is. But then you've got to look at how do you limit that? How do you mitigate it? And what can you do to change that? For every business, it depends what your business is, what those risks are going to be, and what's the thing that could be your undo. But I think what you need to do is, it's great saying that, the entrepreneur jumps off a cliff without a parachute. But actually, I think entrepreneurs jump off a cliff with multiple parachutes. They've got different options that they can take. They'll take the risk, but they'll have options on the table. And they'll have calculated the risk, even if it's on the fly and it's in the back of their head, and they'll understand what they need to do to make this work. So I think one of the factors is just understand what your business is, understand what you want to achieve, and understand what's going to potentially make it fail, and then try to find ways to mitigate that.
Find out what will make the business fail and try to mitigate against that.
Yep.
So for somebody like you said from where you're working before is sort of sales role, where you have to meet a target, probably make ×6 of your salary before you get paid.
Yeah.
And it helps you when you're now working, doing the same thing for yourself. You know the numbers, you know the quotas you have to hit. Building a brand, I guess, will make it easier.
Yeah.
So I want us to talk a little bit about building brand for your business.
Okay.
How important is building a personal brand or on whatever it is you want to do? How important has it been for your success?
There's a number of factors on this one. So building a brand for the first 2 years of my business, I didn't have to make a single sales call. I built relationships. I started that during lockdown. So the process was already 12 months in process. But by the time I clicked the button, it came out with the business, then I already knew what was happening in the marketplace, and I was already networked with so many people that I could just have conversations and the business came to me because the right people knew the way I worked. So the other big factor that having a personal brand was it meant that the business was coming into me was the right business, the right people, the right companies, the right approach. They knew the way I approached the market because I tell a grower about it, I wear a sleeve. So if someone wants to hire someone in the sort of environment that I work in, then they'll come to you. The wrong companies very rarely come to you. Because they've got no interest in what I'm doing, they don't care about my approach, they don't believe in my approach, and vice versa. I probably don't 100% fit with them. It's right. It's really personal branding helps you find your fit.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go around hunting for the best customers. You don't have to go around selling yourself to companies to find who's going to be the right shape for your organization. Because if you got that personal brand, if you share that story from the get-go, then you'll naturally meet these people. You'll align with people. And once you start aligning with a couple of people, they'll recommend you to other people and they'll recommend you on and it'll just grow out. And it's a spider's web. You just have to keep it ticking along and you have to have a consistent message. And you have to be genuine about what you're posting. I think a lot of people go out there to build brand to collect likes. Collecting likes isn't building a personal brand for you. Engagement is a good factor in it. But the majority of the business that comes in as a result of the stuff that I write and the communication that I have, most of it never communicates with me on LinkedIn. Most of it never comments or never likes on my posts or never engages with it in that way. It's sitting there in the background. And the amount of times I've got people coming to me and say, I know I've never commented on your stuff, but I like what you do. I'd be interested now in the chat about whether or not you could align with our business. Most of it you don't see on the surface. It's all what's going on in the background. That's the big piece.
That's impressive, man.
So I think personal brand, it's a huge thing in these days. But personal brand, it also has to align to your business. It's easy for me because my business is me. I'm my business. Foreign Careers, no one really gives a shit about Foreign Careers. Foreign Careers doesn't even have a proper website. I built it a few times, took it apart, and I don't even think I've rebuilt it. I don't use it. It's sitting there somewhere. I pay for it, but it's in pieces. No one really gives a shit about Foreign Careers. I'm almost irrelevant in the situation, and I quite like that because the only two important elements of my business are the people I'm looking for jobs for and the companies that want to employ. I should be invisible in that process. I'm an extension of both of those things. So I need to understand exactly what makes someone tick when they're looking for a new job, and I need to know exactly what makes a company tick and what they're looking for in a new employee. And then I have to match that. So my business is me, and it's not me at the same time. I'm almost that invisible glue that binds it all together. So it's really simple. So everything I write about is relevant to me and the business. Now, if you're manufacturing something, if you're producing something, if you're starting a business that's less of a service and more of a product, then personal branding's only half the battle because your product's the other half. You have to personal brand, but you also have to market. And I think probably in that situation, you have to find a blend with two of them sync together, because you can't market the business as one thing and then have your personal brand completely in contrast to that. You have to line it all up. And Farming Like Clicking the Way is really about actually having a message, sticking to your process, having personality, and leading into that. Not everyone's going to like it. It's not about likes.
That's impressive. About the conversation I had earlier today, and the person said what the mistakes they made was hiring the wrong set of people at the early stage of their business. And the question was, what mistake do you see businesses, people, founders, new founders make? The kind of mistake you also made when you were starting. And the person talked about two major things. One of them was hiring the wrong people. So what advice, how do I hire the right people?
The way I hire it is all based on motivation.
What's motivation?
Right. So you want to hire a software engineer, right? You want to hire a software engineer. You have your general job spec and you have the company criteria. We're looking for a software engineer. We're looking for Microsoft development skills, we're looking for JavaScript skills, this is the wish list of skills we're looking for. That's where the bit of paper tells you. What I focus on is finding the motivations of the people I'm working with. So when you work with a software engineer, the first question I will always ask someone is, tell me about your situation, because it doesn't steer them in any direction. I mean, if I was to ask you just now, tell me about your situation, you could steer the direction in any way. It could be business related, it could be work related, it could be personal related, it could be what they've been doing that day. It doesn't steer the conversation, but it's a huge opener because it will tell you what's at the front of someone's mind. And then you start looking at what their career goals are, what are their aspirations, what do they like doing, what do they not like doing, and what do they want from their next employer, what path are they on, what do they not like, what's their approach to work, what sort of culture do they blend in with, what do they not like, what sort of people do they like working with. You start throwing all these sort of combinations together and you get a really interesting picture of what makes someone tick. Now, at the end of the day, the person that I'm speaking to is going to be a software developer, because otherwise I wouldn't have started the conversation. But that's a tick in the box. You're a software developer, you work in Microsoft, tick, right? I can tell the rest of that from your the company background of your previous employment and all these kind of things. I can see the career trajectory we've been on, but it's all the soft stuff that I'm interested in. It's what makes people excited. See, when you ask that question, someone's tone changes and they get that you feel that genuine enthusiasm from someone. That's what I look for. And you have to hunt for it sometimes. Sometimes people wear it on their sleeves, but you're looking for these little sparks of enthusiasm. You're looking for these bits of motivation. You're looking for the conversations that you start that people get really engaged in and start leading you down a path. That's when you can understand someone's motivations. Then, when you're speaking to a company, you need to understand what they need. What are they trying to build? They're looking for a software developer. Yeah, again, it's tick in the box. It's a 2-minute conversation. But what are they trying to build with the business? What sort of culture do they want to foster? What sort of people do they want to bring into that? What sort of way of working do they want? And what problem are they trying to solve by hiring this person? What's the challenge? What's the bottleneck? Right? All the stuff that's going well, that's great. It's going well. You're not hiring because stuff's going well. There's somewhere in the business something's not going right. That's the bit. That's the challenge. If I ever speak to a company and I say, what challenges are you facing? They'll go, none. Then it's not my client. I'm not interested whatsoever, because they're either A, lie, or they're B, either completely oblivious to the fact there's a challenge in their business. No businesses have got no challenges. Be honest with it, because the right hire will be the person that challenge appeals to. If you're looking for, again, they've got software developer and they've got a bottleneck within their stack, or they're looking to build a new product and they don't have that experience, that's the bit that's most important, is what don't they have within the business? Because then you can find someone that's motivated by that little piece of the puzzle, and the rest of it, people can learn, people can adapt, people have ability. You can quite quickly understand that piece of the puzzle. What you need to find is where the challenge is with the business and where the motivations are with the people, and that's when it clicks into place. And a lot of people miss that because they focus so much on skills and experience and how many years they've been doing the job and what they want, what they're already doing within the business. And actually, you just want to look at these little pockets, the little holes, the little challenges. That's where it's going to make a big difference if you get the right person. And if you get the wrong person, especially the startup space, the wrong person can set somebody's career back 6 months. It can fold a business if you get it wrong. And it's why I actually really like working with startups, because you can really get an understanding of where they are. And as soon as you hire that first person into a startup, the dynamical changes again. You have to almost start from scratch again, because the challenges change, the culture changes. You can't make a culture. It's a combination of the people that are in a business. You can put stuff on the walls, you can put all these motivational quotes, but company's culture changes every time you hire someone into the business. You can help form it, but you can't create it. It's like a growing thing. So every time you hire into a business, you have to look again. What are the challenges now? How has the dynamic changed? How has the culture changed? How has the personality style of the business changed? And where's the new hole? And then we bring someone in to match that. So you just have to be aware of every component with us, rather than the lot skills that you think are important.
So you did make a little mention about company culture. especially for a startup where it's a small team of 3, 5, 6, 10 person. How, Abby, and again, when in my mind, when I hear people talk about, company culture, I know it is, for most people, from my observations, most of the time just buzzword. Just, we are just saying it because we want to also feel among. How do you build a stellar company culture?
First thing you've got to do is understand what sort of culture you want to build, and then you got to own it. So if you go back to like the traditional debate of hybrid working versus remote working versus 5 days a week in the office, it doesn't matter what your stats is on that. You've got to own it. If you want to build a culture that's 5 days a week from the office and you've got a reason for doing that, own it, embrace it, promote it. We're 5 days a week from the office because of this. This is what we want to do. We want to build an in-person culture. We want to have people working collaboratively together. We want to see the whites of each other's eyes across the desk. But we want to do that. See, if you do 5 days a week from the office and then you start taking excuses for it and you start apologizing for the fact that you're 5 days a week from the office, then what's the point? If you're already apologizing for a decision that you've made, then we're probably not making the right decision. And if you're hybrid working, then again, you've got to be looking at what do we want to do from the office? What do we want to do remote? What's the important bit that we do face to face? So once you start putting together what sort of culture you want, embrace it. Be positive about it. Build something that you're genuinely excited about, because there'll be the right people for that. There will be people out there that want to work 5 days a week from the office, just as well as there's people that want to work 5 days a week from home. What I've learned from the last few years of recruitment is everyone that thought they wanted to work 5 days a week from home, all of a sudden quite fancy having an office that they can go to, myself included, which is why I work a day or so a week from here, is to get me out of the house. It's like, all of a sudden things can become very localized when you're sitting working in a whole office on your own. So there's lots of people out there that wanted that and did that, spent a couple of years, and now they're like, do you know what? It's quite nice to have some colleagues and some banter and some conversation that's out with these four walls. So there's people that fit every subculture. Once you have an understanding of what you want to build, embrace it and find those people, find your tribe, and start bringing people on, and then start bringing people on that'll shake it up a little bit. It's like adding to it. Diversity and inclusion's a huge thing. And it's an interesting one because you can hire a room full of middle-aged white guys and you can have a diverse culture. And someone explained it to me once as, if you take 5 people who come from the same town and were taught by the same teacher at the same institution, they'll think the same way. Whereas if you take 5 people that came from different areas, were taught by different people in different institutions, they'll approach problems in different ways. So actually, diversity and inclusion, it doesn't really matter about how many women you've got the team, what cultures and religions you've got the team. Yeah, it's great. The more diverse, the better. I mean, it's huge for building culture. But actually, just having people that different viewpoints and different opinions and different approaches to the work and different approaches to the way they work can be massively helpful in building a positive culture. Because when you hit that roadblock 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the line, the more people you've got looking at different avenues, different routes, different approaches, the more likely you are to overcome. So yeah, culture is just like a living, breathing thing, and the more kind of aspects you have to it, and the more diversity you put into it, you can have kind of pillars to it. Where this is the way we work. These are the hours we work. This is how we approach things. This is our professional standards. But the more you kind of start building around that and bringing different people with different approaches to that, the more interesting it gets. Don't bring a load of people to think the same way, because you'll not learn anything new.
It's quite good. That's quite good. And one of the things that I've seen with startups is somebody's working on an idea. They are looking to, can I call this hire, like have a co-founder? Yes, I want you to talk to me. What are the things I should look for in a co-founder?
The opposite of what you have. Okay. If you're going to put 2 people into a business, let's say there's a lot of companies out there that'll have great ideas, great sales, great product, but they'll not have the technical side. We'll look for a technical co-founder. That happens quite a lot. Bring someone that's got a contrasting approach to yourself. Bring someone on that would challenge your ideas positively. Bring someone that shares your overall village, vision. Bring someone that shares your vision for what you're trying to build, but brings a different aspect you don't have. So if I was hiring for someone to work for myself, I'd bring someone that's process driven. I'd bring someone that's process driven, good at administration tasks, good at dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I'm terrible about that crap. I mean, I chop and change what I do on a daily basis and blurt it all out, went in for the world to see with very little thought given and what comes in the next 30 minutes, let alone the next week. So I would hire someone that completely contrasts my personality, who brings more of a grounded, calculated approach to the business, in which they would check me and I would check them and encourage them to be a little bit more just like the personality fly. They would go, stop posting shite on LinkedIn and focus on what you're meant to be doing. And that way, everyone benefits. So find the parent that fits your personality that you need someone to check, and add that into finding a co-founder that's going to bring that. And then you're looking at skills. I mean, obviously, the one thing that I think a lot of people miss when it comes to starting a business is one of the biggest skills that you're going to have in a business is personal skills. You can have the best product and the best tech in the world, but if you can't get in front of people, what chance have you got? Or you can be great at getting in front of people, but if you've got a shit product that looks like it's been made on a weekend, then they're not going to buy it. So you need to have the right idea and you need to have the skills behind that, but you have to have really solid personal skills as well in order to take that business and move it forward. So it's finding balance between that. And not everyone's got both.
Yeah. People usually do not have hope. It's either you are this way or that way, which is good, Thank you for that. So you did mention if somebody views something, you build a product that is not reasonable, nobody's going to buy it. I want you to talk to me about a product market fit.
Yep.
We all got, that word, it's a boss or anyway. Where, how did you find the product market fit for fund carriers?
So just to ask people. The first thing I did with starting the business was I looked at what worked within the existing market and what people didn't like about the existing market. I started my career working with a company called Progressive, than an IT recruiter. And we had the nickname of Aggressive Progressive because we were aggressive sales-led organization. And you can take that as positive, you can take it as a negative, but we had the nickname of Aggressive Progressive. Now, it was positives and negatives in that. We were all over everything. We knew exactly what was happening in the marketplace, and we would be the first people on the phone to work with companies to get the right people for them. And it came from this point where we wanted to win. It was aggressive sales. It's not a positive thing, it's not a negative thing, it's just an approach to market. So I still use a lot of those principles today that I learned when I worked there. People like the speed.
Yeah.
People like the efficiency of it. People like the effectiveness. They like the fact that we knew the market inside out and there was no getting away from us. What they didn't like was the pushiness of it, the sales of it. They didn't like that aspect of it. So what I did was I took the efficiencies and built that around something that was a bit more personable and a bit more suited to my personality. And so a lot of the market research was already done, but then when I started out the business, I just asked people, what do they want? What do they like about their existing recruitment? What do they not like about their recruit? And one of the things I put into the business early doors is I reduced the amount of work my clients have to do significantly. The traditional way you're taught in recruitment is that if you've got an opportunity for an engineer, any job, you'll send 3 CVs over and they'll review those 3 CVs. And if they interview one of those, you've done a good job. And in general, they'll interview 3 or 4 people before they make an offer to someone. And I was like, they're interviewing 3 or 4 people before they make an offer, then they've got to review 12 to 15 CVs to get those 3 or 4 interviews to then make that offer, which means I'm then on my end having to review hundreds of CVs to then filter that down. And all of a sudden, the filter becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And the workload on everyone is huge. So one of the first targets I set out of the business to prove that was that every CV I sent was going to get interviewed. Therefore, my clients don't even really need to review CVs because they know by the time something lands in their inbox, it's right. It's the right person And there's a reason it's right, and a lot of it's not even written on the page anyway, because it's about the right motivations and fitting their culture, having all that. So by the time the CV's in their inbox, I'm already in the phone explaining why I think this person is the right role for the business, why I've selected them, why I've filtered them out of all the shortlist to be the person that they speak to. And I literally, I mean, I've got it to the point that from sending a CV to getting an offer for someone, the success rate's about the main 2%.
Wow. That's impressive.
Right? So it's tough because I have to reject a lot of people, a lot of really good people. And sometimes it's really difficult to explain to them why I'm not putting them forward, because a lot of it's based on hunch, it's based on intuition, it's based on culture, it's based on motivations not right fit, or someone just being slightly ahead of them on that. But it saves my clients tons of time, because they know by the time they get someone from me, it's the right person. So they don't have to worry about reviewing them, about leaving CVs. They don't have to run dozens of interviews to hire someone. They know that by the time they got someone, they're at least going to make it to final interview. And in all probability, they'll be pretty much on the money to make an offer to. So I looked at recruitment and I took the standard process and that aggressive efficiency, and then I narrowed it down to work with my approach to motivations and culture, to just tone it down so there's no room for error. If I send someone a CV and they interview and they don't do well in the first interview, I've failed. It's on no one but me. I've failed. I've missed something. I've got the spec wrong. I've understood the business wrong. I've not understood my candidate properly. There's a misalignment between the candidate and the client, and the only thing is the glue in the middle, which isn't. So anything I send that isn't 100% right, I failed. So I need to then re-review. And then literally roll my hands up, apologize for wasting anyone's time in the process, and then I say, what have I missed? And I start the whole process again to make sure I don't miss it the next time. And that's how I took product, which is a fairly homogenous standard product. It's a service, it's not even a product. It's a service that anyone could do. Anyone with a laptop and a phone could do what I do. And I found a way that improves it compared to 90% of my opposition. So you just review. If you've got product, you speak to the people that are going to buy that product and you find out how you make it that 1% better. Every single time, every transaction, look at how you can improve it, whether it's efficiency, whether it's productivity, whatever it is. You just always after that feedback. Look for the upward feedback. Sometimes you're not going to like the feedback. Sometimes it'll be negative. And you can take that and you can have a half and you can go, they don't, what did they know? Or you can say, if someone's had a negative experience with my product, how can I make sure that never fucking happens again? And then improve it. It might even be that the person has had a negative experience with your product or your service was the wrong customer for you. And you've sold it to the wrong person. But there'll always be something that you can improve. The market will tell you if you ask it.
So the easiest way to get a product market fit is ask the market. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So I just said, ask competitors. See the amount of feedback and input positivity I've had from other recruitment companies since I started the business.
Really?
I had no idea. When I started the business, one of the biggest mentors to me as a business is a competitor.
That's a new one. So talk to me about that. How did you build that kind of relationship?
They work in a slightly different market. Michael from MBN. So if he watches it, and thanks Michael, but Michael from MBN works within the data space. He's data and he does a lot within the AI space and things these days. Whereas when I started the business, everything I did was software. He was moving away from software. I was focusing on software. He was moving in the data space. And I don't know. Then we started chatting on LinkedIn, and most of our transactions, we speak to each other on WhatsApp and LinkedIn all the time. But I think the first thing was a client I had who was looking for someone really senior in the data space, which I was like, I could have a crack at it, but it's not a strength. I'm busy as it is, so there's no point in me picking this up. So I passed it over to them. And in turn, he's passed me repeat business as well. So if I've got something that's in his wheelhouse, then he's the first person I'll give it to, because I know he approaches the market the same way as me. I know he's got a great reputation. I know their business has a great reputation. I know I can trust them with any client that I could ever deal with, and I know they'll get good service. But in turn, we bounce ideas over each other. If I'm having a shit day, then I know that I can actually drop a message over and say, what the shit did I do here? And I know that we'll give feedback, but there's been countless situations where there've been other recruitment businesses across the UK. I'm actually a part of there's a group on LinkedIn called Anon, which is a recruitment finder group, mainly within the tech space, where we all share ideas and bounce ideas off each other, and it's like having a peer group, and it's huge. Because if you've got problem, this is where this have someone that's got a different approach to things really bad. I don't have anyone because it's just me. So what I've done is surround myself with people who do exactly what I do, who may have a different approach, so that when I get stuck, I've got people I can ask. And you think everyone's in competition with you, but actually they're not. People are really, especially within the startup ecosystem, everyone's willing to help. And the people that aren't willing to help probably are the ones that are going to get stuck themselves. Everyone will share information. If you've got a product that's similar to someone else who's doing a similar product, I would reckon 9 times out of 10 they'll share experience, they'll help you, they'll meet with you, they'll bounce ideas off you, because we're kind of all in it together. And especially in Scotland, historically, the ecosystem is really, really supportive, more than I ever knew when I was working in corporate recruitment. And it's been awesome. So you can ask your market, you can ask your competitors, you can ask other people that plan other business, ask other founders. Everyone's got experience from different avenues on what you can do. Use it. Feedback. Always like.
That's very, really special. The next thing I want to ask you is, you work with founders at the startups. What major mistake do you see them make as regards to recruitment every single time?
Well, it changes all the time. I think the biggest thing is that a lot of founders want to hire. Recruitment's expensive. I'm not going to lie. Using a recruitment consultant's expensive. But using the right recruitment consultant gives you the chance to really bounce what you need off someone. And I think I quite often see founders going out to market and hiring people because they think they need a certain person when actually they don't. And sometimes just a conversation can really narrow down what someone needs. Again, it's about finding that challenge within the business and finding someone that complements the existing culture, the existing team. And I think it's very, very easy to get tunnel vision on what you need without bouncing ideas off, especially if it's just yourself. If it's the first hire, it's the hardest thing. Plus, a lot of founders don't experience interviewing, recruiting, finding the right people, networking, all that kind of thing. It's a full-time job for me. So it's a difficult thing. I've worked with loads of founders that have come to me and asked for advice, and I've helped them with the recruitment. Not even recruiting for them, they've done it themselves, but they've used me as a sounding block each step of the way. How do I interview this person? What sort of interview process do I use? How do I identify the right person for the business? I've had people that have come to me going, I need a bit of this and I need a bit of that. What sort of person should I be looking for? Again, it's one of these things. I'll share all the knowledge and send it. If people need me to do the process for them, I'll do the process. If people want to use me to bounce ideas and generate ideas off, yeah, I'll happily do that. There's no charge for that. I'll share my experience. People use me because it's time and experience that they get from working with me. But if you go off half-cocked and hire someone because you think that's what you need and you've not bounced that idea off for anyone, or you bounced it off friends and family who don't work in your business, don't understand what you're doing, then they'll probably just nod along and go, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, brilliant. No, it sounds like you've got this. It's great that you're hiring. It's good to see that you've expanded. Without going, do you need to expand yet? And are you looking at the right person? And are you really considered what you need and what you need in 6 months' time, not just today? Another thing I see people hire someone for what they need today without considering who they need in 6 months' time. You have to look at a 6-month runway when you hire someone. 6 months, 12 months. What are they going to be doing down the line? Otherwise, you'll get someone that can come and blast out the problem you've got today, but there's zero challenge left in it in 6 months' time, because it's like, what do I do now? And they're babysitting the bit you hired them for. What you actually want to do is bring someone into the business that the current problem is a challenge for, and they will learn and they will develop for it. And there'll be more challenge as they develop within here. So actually hire back a bit. Don't hire someone too experienced for what you need. Hire someone that's going to get challenged from joining your organization, that's going to be kept mentally aware, and they'll stay within business. Retention's a huge thing.
Really?
So we just bounce ideas off people, speak to people before you start going off hiring, before you even start the process. Make sure you've sanity checked exactly what you need, what level of experience you need from that person, what skills you need from that person, and what culture you want. And bounce that off someone that actually knows what they're talking about before you pull the trigger. And then work out when you can do it yourself or whether you need help to do it.
Wow, this is amazing. So the next thing I wanted to ask you was how you did took your time before you made the jump, and when you made the jump, you said you would have been happier if you are not happier. Like you would you wish you
Actually, done it sooner.
sooner.
Yep.
So walk me through what happened then, and how did we get here?
Well, obviously, risk was always, as I said, risk was always the factor, and it was always this massive thing to me. You know, it's like, so yeah, no, I don't like risk. It's also it's also part of the way I run the business. I did start off. I've only changed careers like 3 or 4 times in my life. I don't like changing jobs. I don't like change. It stresses me out, and I don't. Yeah, I don't jump for no reason. So, I mean, the first recruitment business I worked for, I think I was there for 8 years. And then the second one I worked for, I was probably there for similar 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, before I set up the business. And previous to that, I'd worked in a few random jobs around sales, marketing, things like that. So risk was just a factor. And I just wish, literally, I wish I could go back a few years and giving myself a shake and reminding myself that I have to do so much more for another business than I have to do for myself to be a success. But you know what? I learned a lot in the whole time that I've done it. Maybe I just wasn't ready. I don't know. I'm where I am, and I'm not going to. I don't have any regrets on it. I'm just like I just can't believe I had this risk factor as such. It was like an elephant in the room. And I can't believe I never looked at it and thought the risk that I had built up was non-existent.
Mm.
Was like, how am I going to pay my bills? It's like, I have to build so much more, do this for someone else. And I'm successful in what I do. So there's literally no reason that I wouldn't be successful doing it for myself. Now, tech's a big thing. Tech wasn't what it was back in the day. So nowadays you can literally pick up a laptop and a mobile phone and you can run a business. So it's a lot different. You can do a lot of stuff remotely. You can Zoom. COVID changed the way a lot of business was done, which made things a lot easier and a lot less expensive to hit the ground running. LinkedIn eliminated the need for lots of job advertising and marketing and advertising, and so there's all these things in tech that wiped out a lot of risk. So yeah, it's great to look back and say, yeah, I wish I'd done it sooner, but I did it when the time was right, and I did it at a time that I was 100% convinced now's the time to do it. So I think anyone that's building a business obviously hits a point where they're like, right, let's do this. And it comes at different points for different people. I know people that started businesses way later than I have and have done really well with it. So yeah, pick your owner, I guess. I don't know. So
Also, I think the second and the last question that we usually ask everybody is, what is going to be Fraser's blueprint for starting a business?
I should probably build a website the next one. If I was doing it from scratch, I would probably start with a lot more process and a lot more in place before I pulled the trigger. As I said, I pulled the trigger I barely had a brand. Someone helped me out, build a logo. Thankfully, I changed the name of the business last minute, and I came out with a business and a logo, and that was all I had. And a weird love of wanting to get some business cards printed because I thought the logo would look really cool on a business card, and not that I ever need them. But I would probably be more process led in terms of getting the business registered, get branding done, get real understanding of what I wanted the business to be seen as, having the website and the collateral and all that kind of stuff in line before I hit the trigger. Because literally I pulled the trigger and I had 12 months writing stuff on LinkedIn, and I never even thought about putting it in place. And as I said, don't. One of the things I'm looking at with the business now is starting to do business in the US and starting to do business down south as well as just Scotland. And all of a sudden I've got to build a website or pay someone to build that for me because no one in the US is going to take me seriously at all. When I think the address on my website probably says I live in Spain or something like that because it's like the default on WordPress. So yeah, I would start with more process in place. But as I've said, that's not my key personality. So maybe hire someone to do that for me.
Okay. Okay. So what advice do you have for somebody who is thinking about starting a business right now?
Ask yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen? And you'll probably find that it's not that big. And if you genuinely want to go out and start a business and you're passionate about what you're looking to go and do it. Because the risk is probably a case of you have to go and get in a job. And if you don't start a business, you have to go and get in a job anyway. So if you're going to start a business, do it, get stuck in, give it everything you've got, lead into your personality and the way you want to get the business, have an idea of how you want that to look, just run with it. Find your people fast, put yourself out there, network. So much information today out from networking, but you have to go out there and make things happen. You have to kind of ignore that little voice in your head of people doubting you or what could go wrong or what ifs. And you kind of just have to silence it because, as I said, you'll find the right people if you put yourself out there. And if you realize that the risk is probably that you run out of cash and have to go get yourself a job, you're probably there in the first place. So what you're going to do is just a case tide. And the upside of that is, what's the stat? They said one in 5 businesses fail in the first whatever years. That's assuming you take a business closing as a failure. If I closed my business today and went out and got a job working for another recruitment company or working for a company to manage recruitment, Born Careers will never have been a failure, even if I shut it down. Because 4 or 5 years I've been doing this business, I've had a great time. I've built a great network. I've worked with some amazing clients. I've built some amazing tools. I've learned so much as part of the process that if I decide to take my career in a different path in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, who knows? At some point I might decide I want to have colleagues again. It doesn't mean that it's a failure. It just means that it's the end of that path and the start of a new one. So I think you have to take that 1 in 5 businesses fails and just rip that shit up, because I don't know who came up with it and I don't know what you class as a failure, but I think you've got to lead into the fact that it's a journey, it's an experience, it's something that you try, and if it succeeds, fuck it, amazing, well done. Because there's what percentage of people go out, take that chance? And I'd rather be taking the chance and deciding in the end of X amount of time to go and take another route after that than not taking that chance and wishing I had.
That's all. How do you, because you sort of have a growth mindset, a mindset of let's go get it.
Yep.
How does one develop that? Is this something that can be learned? How do you have that?
Yeah, you say that, but do I have a let's go get it growth mindset? Because it's still just me running my own one-man business.
Basically, either way, about the past 5 years,
I've been running for a few years. I run my business as a lifestyle business, and I've got what I looked at is what do I want to be doing out of work, and what do I want to be doing in work, and how do I make these things combine? How do I merge these things? And I found something that works for me. I don't think I got a growth mindset. I just think I've got a very set idea of what I want. Born Careers is a lifestyle business. I'm not the richest recruitment consultant. I did a podcast a couple of years ago that was the top billers toolkit. Even the term of being a top biller is just, it goes against the grain with me. But what they did want to speak to me about is the fact that I've taken the recruitment process and I've cut it down to be as efficient as it can be, because now it fits in with my lifestyle. So when we finished up here, what time are we at just now? 1:30. I'm going to probably switch on the laptop for an hour, and then I'm going to go and pick up my kids and walk them home from school. And I'm going to bring them both. And tonight I'm going to go and do some football coaching with them and spend time with my eldest. And then I'll switch on the laptop when they go to bed, and I'll probably sit with a whiskey and I'll catch up with the stuff I probably should have done this morning. But I've taken my business and I've taken my lifestyle and I've found a way to mash the two together. It's not specifically a growth mindset. It's just a very clear idea of what I wanted to do. And I think you have to have that place. If you want to go out in a growth mindset, if you want to go out and make a business, if you want to go out and raise capital and you want to grow a business and you want to hire big teams, I think 90% of your head has to be on, I want to build a business. And the 10%, any little bit you've got chipped off left, is when you get downtime. And I think that's a very different beast from what I am. But you need to understand, what do you want to do? If you want to build a business, do you want a lifestyle business? Do you want something in the middle? Do you want to go and conquer the world? Because it's all going to take completely different things, and you have to have that straight in your head before you do it. I still haven't hired anyone because I'm quite happy with what I'm doing just now. Now, there may come a time where I say, do you know what? I kind of want to conquer the world. I want to grow. I want to build a recruitment business. I want to build a brand. I want to take this to the next level and become bigger and make lots of money and focus on my business. My kids might get older and I might have more time on my hands and decide that's what I'm going to do, but that's not me just now. So I'm not even going to tend to be that person. If you want to start a business that requires that mindset, you don't have that mindset. You're kidding yourself. You would go. You've got to go after what you want to go after. You can't. I don't think you can develop that. I think personality is something that is built. And the first thing you spoke about is how my childhood took me to where I am today. Now, my dad taught me sales. He taught me customer services. He taught me honesty. He taught me all these things. I grew up as a gamer. I played every gaming console under the sun. I tried to become a software developer. I did coding at uni. I was shit at it. Doesn't work for me. So my career naturally progressed into a business where I work the tech because I love all the stuff that brings, but I work with people because that's where my mindset is. That's where my ability is. So my entire career and the entire personality and my entire mindset has been built from when I've been single digits. I don't think I could change that now, even if I wanted to. I could tweak it. I could probably be a bit more organized. But that's using tools to counter aspects of my personality. You can't change it. You have to go after what you've got on the table. You've got to be yourself and make small adjustments along the way. Does that answer the question? So growth mindset is different things for different people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was good. Thanks for so much.